We surged resources to New Jersey and New York and New Orleans and Detroit. We told the American people what needed to be done, and the American people made the sacrifices. When the outbreak of the Sun Belt happened this summer, again, Americans stepped forward. But the reality is the work of the President of the United States goes on. A vacancy on the Supreme Court of the United States has come upon us, and the President introduced Judge Amy Coney Barrett.
Thank you, Vice President.
If I may say, that Rose Garden event, there's been a great deal of speculation about it. My wife Karen and I were there and honored to be there. Many of the people who were at that event, Susan, actually were tested for coronavirus, and it was an outdoor event, which all of our scientists regularly and routinely advise. The difference here is President Trump and I trust the American people to make choices in the best interest of their health. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris consistently talk about mandates, and not just mandates with the coronavirus, but a government takeover of health care,
Thank you,
the Green New Deal, all government control. We're about freedom and respecting the freedom of the American people.
Let's talk about respecting the American people. You respect the American people when you tell them the truth. You respect the American people when you have the courage to be a leader, speaking of those things that you may not want people to hear, but they need to hear so they can protect themselves. But this administration stood on information that if you had as a parent, if you had as a worker, knowing you didn't have enough money saved up, and now you're standing in a food line because of the ineptitude of an administration that was unwilling to speak the truth to the American people. So let's talk about caring about the American people. The American people have had to sacrifice far too much because of the incompetence of this administration. It is asking too much of the people.
Susan, we talk about
It is asking too much of the people. That they would not be equipped with the information they need to help themselves to protect their parents and their children.
Kamala Harris, Senator Harris, I'm sorry.
That's fine, I'm Kamala.
No, you're Senator Harris to me. For life to get back to normal, Dr. Anthony Fauci and other experts say that most of the people who can be vaccinated need to be vaccinated. But half of Americans now say they wouldn't take a vaccine if it was released now. If the Trump administration approves a vaccine before or after the election, should Americans take it, and would you take it?
If the public health professionals, if Dr. Fauci, if the doctors tell us that we should take it, I'll be the first in line to take it. Absolutely. But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
Vice President Pence, there have been a lot of repercussions from this pandemic. In recent days, the president's diagnosis of COVID-19 has underscored the importance of the job that you hold and that you are seeking. That's our second topic tonight. It's the role of the vice president. One of you will make history on January 20th. You will be the vice president to the oldest president the United States has ever had. Donald Trump will be 74 years old on Inauguration Day. Joe Biden will be 78 years old. That already has raised concerns among some voters, concerns that have been sharpened by President Trump's hospitalization in recent days. Vice President Pence, have you had a conversation or reached an agreement with President Trump about safeguards or procedure when it comes to the issue of presidential disability? And if not, do you think you should? You have 2 minutes without interruption.
现在问这个他们的问题是，如果总统岁数太大了，需要副总统来这个work 的话，他们是不是
The reality is that we're going to have a vaccine, Senator, in record time, in unheard of time, in less than a year. We have 5 companies in phase 3 clinical trials, and we're right now producing tens of millions of doses. So the fact that you continue to undermine public confidence in a vaccine, if the vaccine emerges during the Trump administration,
大家可以看有2个隔着的玻璃啊，怕这个彭斯有病毒传染。
Stop playing politics with people's lives. The reality is that we will have a vaccine.
彭斯说这个 Kamala Harris 不要玩弄政治，就是影响这个老百姓的这个生命。
Your continuous undermining of confidence in a vaccine is just unacceptable. And let me also say,
说民主党的想法把这个人们对于这个疫苗的信心给打击。
It was 2009. The swine flu arrived in the United States.
现在彭斯开始说，2009年这个
as the coronavirus.
H1N1
But before the end of the year,
应该是猪瘟
when Joe Biden was vice president of the United States,
因为那个时候是
not
这
7.5
个
million
奥巴
people
马政府
contracted
刚刚
the
开
swine
始的。
flu. 60 million Americans contracted the swine flu. If the swine flu had been as lethal as the coronavirus, in 2009, when Joe Biden was vice president, we would have lost 2 million American lives. His own chief of staff, Ron Klain,
说如果当年这个爆发猪瘟的时候，拜登是美国总统的话，我们会死这个上百万人。
And we learned from that. They left the strategic national stockpile empty. They left an empty and hollow plan, but we still learned from it. And I think the American people
现在开始说这个奥巴马政府当时这个防疫不
we have
行。
done. And Senator, please stop undermining confidence in a vaccine.
Senator Harris, let me ask you the same question that I asked Vice President Pence, which is, have you had a conversation or reached an agreement with Vice President Biden about safeguards or procedures when it comes to the issue of presidential disability? And if not, and if you win the election next month, do you think you should? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So let me tell you, first of all, the day I got the call from Joe Biden, it was actually a call. Asking me to serve with him on this ticket was probably one of the most memorable days of my life. I thought about my mother, who came to the United States at the age of 19, gave birth to me at the age of 25 at Kaiser Hospital in Oakland, California. And the thought that I'd be sitting here right now, I know would make her proud, and she must be looking down on this. Joe and I were raised in a very similar way. We were raised with values that are about hard work, about the value and the dignity of public service, and about the importance of fighting for the dignity of all people. And I think Joe asked me to serve with him because
说拜登选我为这个竞选搭档。
being elected the first woman district attorney of San Francisco, where I created models of innovation for law enforcement in terms of reform of the criminal justice system. I was elected the first woman of color and black woman to be elected Attorney General of the state of California, where I ran the second largest Department of Justice in the United States, second only to the United States Department of Justice. And there I took on everything from transnational criminal organizations to the big banks that were taking advantage of homeowners to for-profit colleges that were taking advantage of veterans. And then, of course, now I serve in the United States Senate as only the second black woman ever elected to the United States Senate. I serve on the Senate Intelligence Committee, where I've been in regular receipt of classified information about threats to our nation and hotspots around the world. I've traveled the world. I've met with our soldiers in war zones. And I think Joe has asked me to serve with him because he knows that we share a purpose, which is about lifting up the American people. And after the 4 years that we have seen of Donald Trump unifying our country around our common values and principles.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Neither President Trump nor Vice President Biden has released a sort of detailed health information that had become the modern norm until the 2016 election. And in recent days, President Trump's doctors have given misleading answers or refused to answer basic questions about his health. And my question to each of you in turn is this information
这个让人疑惑的，说这个选民是否有资格知道这个总统选举人的这个健康信息？因为美国历史上这个特朗普和拜登已经是整个200多年这个岁数最大的2个选举人了，一个74岁，一个77岁。
The concern that have ushered forth for every American impacted by the coronavirus. But the care the president received at Walter Reed Hospital, the White House doctors, was exceptional. And the transparency that they practiced all along the way will continue. The American people have a right to know about the health and well-being of their president. And
他说美国选民有权知道总统的这个健康信息。
And was more than a little moved by the broad and bipartisan support. And Senator, I want to thank you and Joe Biden for your expressions of genuine concern. And I also want to congratulate you, as I did on that phone call, on the historic nature of your nomination.
Thank you.
I never expected to be on this stage 4 years ago, so I know the feeling. But the reality is we've got an election before the American people in the midst of this challenging year. And the stakes have never been higher, but I think the choice has never been clear.
好的，现在这个彭斯说时间太长了，这个时间到了。
Do voters have a right to know more detailed health information about presidential candidates and especially about presidents, especially when they're facing some kind of challenge?
Absolutely, and that's why Joe Biden has been so incredibly transparent, and certainly by contrast, the president has not, both in terms of health records, but also let's look at taxes. We now
现
know
在说的
because
是
of
这个
great
健康问题，但
investigative
是
journalism
这个
that
Kamala
Donald
Harris
Trump
说
paid
成了现在是
$750
说到这
in
个
taxes. When I first heard about it,
交
I
税的这个
literally
问题
said, "You mean $750,000?" And
他
it
说我
was
开
like,
始听
"No,
到的时候
$750."
$750，我以为
We
是
now
这
know
个
Donald Trump
750千，
owes
也就是说75
and is in
万
debt
美元。
for $400 million. And just so everyone is clear, when we say in debt, it means you owe money to somebody. And it'd be really good to know who the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, owes money to, because the American people have a right to know what is influencing the president's decisions. And is he making those decisions on the best interest of the American people, of you, or self-interest? So, Susan, I'm glad you asked about transparency, because it has to be across the board. Joe has been incredibly transparent over many, many years. The one thing we all know about Joe, he puts it all out there. He is honest, he is forthright. But Donald Trump, on the other hand, has been about covering up everything.
Thank you, Senator Harris. I want to give you a chance to respond, Vice President.
Well, look, I respect the fact that Joe Biden spent 47 years in public life. I respect your public service as well.
Thank you.
But the American people have a president who's a businessman, he's a job creator, who's paid
他说这个
tens of millions of dollars in taxes,
特朗普
payroll taxes, property
他
taxes,
这个
created
付了
tens
上
of
千万
thousands of
美元的
American
税，
jobs. And the president said those public
创造了
reports
非
are
常非常多的
not
这个工作
accurate.
机会。
And the president's also released literally stacks of financial disclosures the American people can review just as the law allows. But the distinction here is that Joe Biden, 47 years in public service,
现在开始说这个拜登47年的这个政治经历，但是特朗普只有47个月。
taxes, rolling back regulation,
Thank you, Vice
energy,
President.
开始这个鼓吹特朗普减税。
Thank you, Vice President.
If Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
You know, that's a good segue into our third topic, which is about the economy. This has been another aspect of life for Americans that's been so affected by this coronavirus. We have a jobs crisis brewing. On Friday, we learned that the unemployment rate had declined to 7.9% in September, but the job growth had stalled, and that was before the latest round of layoffs and furloughs.
现在说这个最新美国失业率是
Hundreds of
7.3%，
thousands of discouraged workers have stopped looking for work.
但是很
Nearly
多
11
这
million
个
jobs that
人仍
existed
然
at
是
the
失
beginning
业
of the
的。
year haven't been replaced. Those hardest hit include Latinos, blacks, and women.
特别是这个少数族
Senator
裔
Harris,
是
the
失业。
Biden-Harris campaign has proposed new programs to boost the economy, and you would pay for that new spending by raising $4 trillion
现在问
in
这
taxes
个
on wealthy
Kamala
individuals and
Harris 这个加
corporations.
税的问题，因
Some
为拜登
economists warn that
是
could
想
curb
这个加税的，
entrepreneurial
特朗普
ventures
是减
that
税
fuel
的。
growth and create jobs. Would raising taxes put the recovery at risk?
问
And you
他
have 2
如果
minutes
加
to
税的
answer
话，会不会
uninterrupted.
对这个经济复苏有影响？
On the issue of the economy, I think there couldn't be a more fundamental difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Joe Biden believes you measure the health and the strength of America's economy based on the health and the strength of the American
说这
worker.
拜登看
and the
美
American
国经济
family.
如何，是看这个
On the
美
other
国家
hand, you
庭
have Donald
的
Trump,
生活
who measures
如
the strength
何。
of the economy
而特
based
朗
on
普
how
呢，
rich people are doing.
特朗
Which is
普
why
看
he
经济怎么
passed a
样，是
tax
看这个
bill
美国的这个
benefiting
富
the
人
top
怎么
1%
样。
and the biggest corporations of America, leading to a $2 trillion
因为
deficit that the
特朗
American
普
people
确
are
确
going
实
to
实
have
是
to
这
pay
个
for.
主要给富人减
On
税
day， one,
特别是给
Joe
大公
Biden
司
will
减税。
repeal that tax bill. He'll get rid of it. And
说
what
拜
he'll do
登
with
呢
the money is
会把
invest it in
他
the
的这个给大
American
公司
people.
减税的
And
方案
through a
给
plan
否
that is
决。
about investing in infrastructure, something that Donald Trump said he would do. I remember hearing about some infrastructure week. I don't think it ever happened.
会增加这个基础设施的建设。特朗普说了很多年这个基础设施建设，但是从来都没有发生。而且更加清洁的这个能源。
There was a time when our country believed in science.
他说，我们国家曾经这个尊重科学，但是现在不再尊重科学了。
Joe Biden will use that money to invest in education.
说我们会把这个多收的这个税呢，用在这个教育上。
If you come from a family that makes less than $125,000, you'll go to a public university for free.
现在他说，如果你的收入不到12.5万块钱的话，你家庭收入你可以去公立学校免费。我觉得这个是有一点这个步子迈得太大了，因为你12.5万不算很低了。如果大学免费的话，这个可能有点
But the latest economic report suggests that's not happening. Should Americans be braced for an economic comeback that is going to take not months, but a year or more? You have 2 minutes to answer uninterrupted.
When President Trump and I took office, America had gone through the slowest economic recovery since the Great Depression.
他说，特朗普上台的时候，我们这个经济恢复是最慢的，就是说奥巴马。
President Trump cut taxes across the board.
说特朗普呢把这个减税了。
The average American family of four had $2,000 in savings in taxes, and with the rise in wages that occurred,
他说每年每个家庭可以省$2000的这个税。
The average household income for a family of four increased by $4,000 following President Trump's tax cuts. But America, you just heard Senator Harris tell you, on day one, Joe Biden's going to raise your taxes. It's really remarkable to think, Susan. I mean, right after a time where we're going through a pandemic that lost 22 million jobs.
现在就是利用这个选民的这个紧张情绪，说拜登上台第一天就加税。
Rolled back regulation, unleashed American energy, fought for free and fair trade, and secured $4 trillion from the Congress of the United States to give direct payments to families, save 50 million jobs through the Paycheck Protection Program. We literally have spared no expense to help the American people and the American worker through this. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris want to raise taxes. They want to bury our economy under a $2 trillion Green New Deal, which you were one of the original co-sponsors of in the United States Senate. They want to abolish fossil fuels and ban fracking, which would cost hundreds of thousands of American jobs all across the heartland. And Joe Biden wants to go back to economic surrender to China. That when we took office, half of our international trade deficit was with China alone. And Joe Biden wants to repeal all of the tariffs that President Trump put into effect to fight for American jobs and American workers. Joe Biden says democracy's on the ballot. Make no mistake about it, Susan. The American economy, the American comeback is on the ballot with 4 more years of growth and opportunity, 4 more years of President Donald Trump. 2021 is going to be the biggest economic year in the history of this country.
Thank you, Vice President Pence. Senator Harris.
Well, I mean, I think we saw enough of it in last week's debate, but I think this is supposed to be a debate based on fact and truth. And the truth and the fact is Joe Biden has been very clear. He will not raise taxes on anybody who makes less than $400,000 a year.
He said he's going to repeal the Trump tax cuts.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
Well, wait.
I'm speaking.
It'd be important if you said the truth. Joe Biden said twice in the debate last week that he's going to repeal the Trump tax cuts. That was tax cuts that gave the average working family $2,000 in a tax break every single year. Senator,
that is absolutely not true.
Is he only going to repeal part of the Trump tax cuts?
If you don't mind letting me finish, we can then have a conversation, okay?
Please.
Okay. Joe Biden will not raise taxes on anyone who makes less than $400,000 a year. He has been very clear about that.
他说呢，低于这个40万美元年收入的不会给你加税。
Joe Biden is the one who, during the Great Recession, was responsible for the Recovery Act that brought America back. And now the Trump-Pence administration wants to take credit.
他说呢，之前是奥巴马政府把这个美国从上一次经济危机解脱出来的，但是特朗普政府想拿这个credit。
But Joe Biden, on the one hand, did that. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who has reigned over a recession that is being compared to the Great Depression. On the one hand, you have Joe Biden, who
说
was
这个川普
responsible
创
with
造
President
了
Barack
跟去年
Obama
这
for the
个上
Affordable
世纪
Care
大萧
Act,
条一样的
which
这
brought
种
health care to over
大的经
20
济萧
million
条。
Americans and protected people with pre-existing conditions. And what it also
现
did
在说奥巴马
is it
care 的
saved
就是
those families who otherwise were going bankrupt because of hospital bills they could not
因为
afford.
很
On
多
the
这
other
个
hand,
人
you
需
have
要奥
Donald
巴马
Trump, who's in
care，
court
如果
right
特朗
now,
普
trying
把
to
这
get
个奥
rid
巴马
of,
care 提
he's
到的话，
trying
很
to
多
get rid of
家庭
the
呢会
Affordable
这
Care
个
Act,
破产。
which means that you will lose protections if you have pre-existing conditions. And this is very important, Susan.
Yes,
and it's
but
important.
we need to give Vice President.
I'd just like to, he interrupted me, and I'd like to just finish, please. If you have a pre-existing condition, heart disease,
说如
diabetes,
果你
breast
有之
cancer,
前这
they're
个
coming for you.
呃
If you love someone who has a
pre-existing
pre-existing condition,
condition 的话
Thank
they're
you, Senator
coming for
Harris.
you. If you are
他们
under
就
the
会
age
这
of
个
26 on your parents'
coming
coverage,
for you.
they're coming for you.
Senator Harris, thank you.
You're
Let me
welcome.
give you a chance to respond.
Well, I hope we have a chance to talk about health care because Obamacare was a disaster.
然后他说这个奥巴马 care 是一个这个灾难，
President Trump and I have
但
a
是现在美
plan
国大部分人呢
to
还是
improve
认
health care
同这个奥巴马
and
care 的。
protect pre-existing conditions for every American. But look, Senator Harris, you're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. You yourself said on multiple occasions when you were running for president that you would ban fracking. Joe Biden looked at a supporter in the eye and pointed and said, I guarantee that we will abolish fossil fuels. They have a $2 trillion version of the Green New Deal, Susan, that your newspaper, USA Today, said really wasn't that very different from the original Green New Deal. More taxes, more regulation,
现在开始
banning
说这个民
fracking,
主党会
abolishing
有
fossil
更
fuel,
多的
crushing
这
American
个
energy,
税啊，
and
更
economic
多的对
surrender
这
to
个
China
经济
is a
的这
prescription
个
for
公司的制
economic
约
decline. President
regulation。
Trump and I will keep America growing. The V-shaped recovery that's
彭斯
underway
说
right
我们就
now
不管
will
这个
continue
经
with
济
4 more
这
years of
个
President Donald
让
Trump.
他们
Thank you very much,
自由
Vice
的这个发
President
展
Pence.
让
Once
这些
again,
大公
you've
司。
provided the perfect segue to a new topic, which is climate change.
现在说
And
这个
Vice
climate
President Pence,
change
I'd
就是
like to
气候
pose the
变化
first。question to you. This year, we've seen record-setting hurricanes in the South. Another one, Hurricane Delta, is now threatening the
现在说
Gulf.
很多
And we
的
have
这
seen
个
record-setting wildfires in the
hurricane 就
West.
是飓风、
Do you believe,
台风，
as the scientific community has concluded,
还有这个
that
森
man-made
林大
climate
火？
change has made wildfires bigger, hotter, and more
问
deadly,
他们是不是
and have
承
made
认
hurricanes
就是
wetter, slower,
人为的
and
引
more
起这个环境
damaging?
变
You
化
have
呢？
2
气候
minutes
变化
uninterrupted.
使得这些灾难
Thank
增
you,
多
Susan.。First, I'm very proud of our record on the environment and on conservation. According to all of the best estimates, our air and land are cleaner than any time ever recorded. Our water is among the cleanest in the world. And just a little while ago, the president signed the Outdoors Act. It's the largest investment in our public lands and public parks in 100 years. So President Trump has made a commitment to conservation and to the environment. Now, with regard to climate change, the climate is changing. But the issue is, what's the cause and what do we do about it? President Trump has made it clear that we're going to continue to listen to the science. Now, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris would put us back in the Paris Climate Accord. They'd impose the Green New Deal,
说这个巴黎
which
气候
would
协定，
crush American energy, would increase the energy costs of American families in their homes, and literally would crush American jobs. And President Trump and I believe that the progress that we have made in a cleaner environment has been happening precisely because we have a strong free market economy. You know, what's
现在
remarkable
又
is
把这个
the United States has
气候
reduced
环境跟这
CO2
个
more
自由经济
than the countries that are
来
still in the
挂钩
Paris
了。
Climate Accord, but we've done it through innovation. And we've done it through natural gas and fracking, which, Senator, the American people can go look at the record. I know Joe Biden says otherwise now, as you do, but the both of you repeatedly committed to abolishing fossil fuel and banning fracking. And so by creating the kind of American innovation, we're actually steering toward a stronger and better environment. With regard to wildfires, President Trump and I believe that forest management has to be front and center, and even Governor Gavin Newsom from your state has agreed we've got to work on forest management. With regard to hurricanes,
他们觉得
the
这个
National
森林大火
Oceanic
呢是应该加
Administration
强
tells
森
us
林
that
官，
actually,
就
as
是监
difficult
管，
as they
而
are,
不是说这个
there
气
are
候变
no
化。
more hurricanes today than
Thank
there
you.
were 100 years ago.
Thank you.
But many of the climate alarmists
President Pence, I'm
use
sorry, your time
hurricanes
is up.
and wildfires to try and
Thank
sell
you,
their
Vice
bill of
President
goods of a
Pence.
Green New Deal. And President Trump and I are going to always put
Thank you,
American
Vice
jobs and
President
American
Pence.
workers first.
Senator Harris, as the Vice President mentioned, you co-sponsored the Green New Deal in Congress.
说他关于
But
这
Vice
个
President Biden
Green
said
New
in
Deal
last
问
week's
题，因为 Green
debate
New
that
Deal
he
是
does
比
not
较这个
support the
步子迈
Green
比较
New
大
Deal.
呀，需要
But if you look at the
2万亿美
Biden
元，
Harris
很多人都比较
campaign
怀疑
website,
的
it。describes the Green New Deal as a crucial framework. What exactly would be the stance of a Biden-Harris administration toward the Green New
因为
Deal?
美国
You
人比
have
较
2
保
minutes
守啊，比
uninterrupted.
较这
Sure.
个
So,
对这个
first
新
of
的
all,
事物
I will
比
repeat,
较这个
and the American
谨
people
慎。
know that Joe Biden will not ban fracking. That is a fact. That is a fact. I will repeat that Joe Biden has been very clear that he thinks about growing jobs, which is why he will not increase taxes for anyone who
对，
makes
这两
less
个人
than
还是比较有这个辩论
$400,000
风
a
范的
year.
打断
Joe
比较
Biden's
少。
economic plan,
如果特朗普在
Moody's,
台上
which is a
直接就
reputable
把这
Wall
个
Street
掀桌了，
firm,
就谁
has
谁
said
说
we'll
话都
create
听不见
7
了。
million more jobs than Donald Trump's. And part of those jobs that will be created by Joe Biden are going to be about clean energy and renewable energy. Because you see, Joe understands
现在说这个再生能源
that
的
the
问题。
west coast of our country is burning, including my home state of California. Joe sees what is happening on the Gulf states, which are being battered by storms. Joe has seen and talked with the farmers in Iowa, whose entire crops have been
华莱
destroyed
士
because
还
of
能打
floods.
断这个特
And
朗
so
普。如
Joe
果今
believes
天这女
again
主持
in
人
science.
见
I'll
着
tell
特
you
朗普这样
something,
的，
Susan.
真
I
的是
served
没
when I
法
first
hold 得
got to
住
the
场。
Senate on the committee that's responsible for the environment. Do you know this administration took the word science off the website?
说现在特朗普政府把这个科学这个词给从这个网站上拿下来了。
with this administration, which is they don't believe in science.
因为现在确实是呢，有两个，一个新英格兰医学杂志，还有美国科学，过去都100多年都没有这个干涉美国政治，支持哪个这个总统竞选人。这一次呢，是100多年来第一次说支持这个拜登。
Who is prepared to lead our country over the course of the next 4 years on what is an existential threat to us as human beings? Joe is about saying we're going to invest that in renewable energy. It's going to be about the creation of millions of jobs. We will achieve net zero emissions by 2050, carbon neutral by 2035. Joe has a plan. This has been a lot of talk from the Trump administration, and really it has been to go backward instead of forward. We will also re-enter the climate agreement with pride.
Senator Harris just said that climate change is an existential
是的，
threat.
现在就是这个
Vice
climate
President Pence,
change
do you
的
believe
气候
that
变化
climate。change poses an existential threat?
问他觉不
As I
觉
said,
得这个
Susan,
气
the
候变
climate is
化
changing. We'll follow the science.
发生了这个对人们
Once
有威
again,
胁。
Senator Harris is denying the fact that they're going to raise taxes on every American. Joe Biden said twice in the debate last week that on day one he was going to repeal the Trump tax cuts.
现在所
Those
有的
tax
这个事
cuts
情呢，
delivered
都会
$2,000 in tax
天天
relief
就是
to the
挂回
average
到这
family
个
of
拜
four
登
across
要加
America.
税的这个问题。
And with regard to banning fracking, I just
他现在
recommend that people
不怎么说
look
这
at the
个
record.
气候
You
变化。
yourself said repeatedly that you would ban fracking. You were the first Senate co-sponsor of the Green New Deal. And while Joe Biden denied the Green New Deal, Susan, thank you for pointing out the Green New Deal is on their campaign website. And as USA Today said, it's essentially the same plan as you co-sponsored with AOC when she submitted it in the Senate. And you just heard the senator say that she's going to resubmit America to the Paris Climate Accord. Look, the American people have always cherished our environment. We'll continue to cherish it. We've made great progress reducing CO2 emissions through American innovation and the
现
development
在
of
说这
natural
个
gas through
fracking 说了很
fracking.
多次，就是
We
用这
don't
个
need a
水压
massive
法来
$2
采油
trillion
或者天然
Green New
气，
Deal that would impose all
对
new
这个
mandates on
地
American
球确实有一
businesses
定的这
and
个
American
影
families.
响的
Joe
环境
Biden
影
wants
响。
us to
Thank you, Vice
retrofit
President.
4 million
Thank you, Vice
American
President.
business buildings. It makes no sense. It will cost jobs. President Trump
Thank
is
you,
going to
Vice
put
President.
America first. He's going to
你看，现在
put
就是
jobs first, and we're going to take
彭斯总
care
是
of our
说话
environment and follow the
超
science.
时
Thank you,
But
Vice
you know, on the
President.
issue of jobs,
Senator Harris.
let's talk about that. The vice president earlier referred to, as part of what he thinks is an accomplishment, the president's trade war with China. You lost that trade war. You lost it.
这个贸易战问题说，
is
特朗
because
普
of a
输了这
so-called
个对
trade
中
war
国的
with
贸易战
China. America lost 300,000 manufacturing jobs. Farmers have experienced
说这个工
bankruptcy
人还有农民
because
失
of
去了
it.
很多
We
这
are in
个
a
工作
manufacturing recession
损失比较
because
这
of
个
it.
比较
And
大。
when we look
Manufacturing
at
就是说
where
制
this
造业，
administration has been, there are estimates that by the end of the term of this administration, they will have lost more jobs than almost any other presidential administration.
说特朗普
And
政
the
府
American
这
people
个
know what
失
I'm
去了
talking
比
about.
任何一
You
个
know,
之前的政府
I
做
think
更
about
多的工作。
20-year-olds. You know, we have a 20-year-old, a 20-something-year-old who are coming out of high school and college right now, and you're wondering, is there going to be a job there for me? We're looking at people who are trying to figure out how they're going to pay rent by the end of the month. Almost half of American renters are worried about whether they're going to be able to pay rent
说美
by
国
the
有
end
一
of
半
the
的这个
month.
租房的
This
人
is
都比
where
较
the
担
economy
心，就
is
是
in
没有
America right
钱
now, and it is
租房
because
了。
of the catastrophe
因为现
and
在
the
确实这个
failure
疫
of
情影
leadership
响了
of this
很多这个
administration.
人的这个收
Thank you,
入，
Senator
可能没
Harris.
法交做
Vice
这个
President
账
Pence,
单
let me
呀
give you just 15
房
seconds
租
to
什么的。
respond, because then I want to move on to.
Well, I'd love to respond. Look, lost the trade war with China. Joe Biden never fought it. Joe Biden has been a cheerleader for communist China through over the last several decades.
说拜登这几十年都是
Senator
对
Harris,
中
you're
国
entitled
太
to your
好
opinion.
了。
You're not entitled to your own facts. When Joe Biden was vice president, we lost 200,000 manufacturing jobs. And President Obama said they were never coming back. He said we needed a magic wand to bring them back.
说
In our
奥
first
巴
3
马
years after
在
we
任
cut
的时候，
taxes,
我
rolled
们失
back
去
regulation,
了
unleashed
20万
American
的这个
energy,
制造业的
this
机会，而
administration
且
saw
他说这个制造业的
500,000
机会再也
manufacturing
不会
jobs
回来了。
created. And that's exactly the kind of growth we're going to continue to see as we bring our nation through
Thank you, Vice
this
President
pandemic.
Pence.
With a Green New
Thank you,
Deal, your
Vice President
massive new
Pence.
mandates, your Paris
这
Climate
个
Accord, it's
现
going to
在
kill
这
jobs this
个
time,
彭
just
斯
like
每
it killed
次都
jobs.
超时半
Listen,
分钟
I just
啊，
need to respond very briefly.
15
please.
seconds, and
Thank
then
you.
we'll move on.
Thank you.
15秒钟。
Joe Biden is responsible for saving America's auto industry, and you voted against it. So let's set the record straight. Thank you.
说这
I'd
个
like
汽
to
车
talk
工业
about，China. We have,
说
as
中
our
国，现在
next
开始说中国
topic, we have no more complicated or consequential foreign relationship than the one with China. It is a huge market for American agricultural
说跟
goods.
中
It's
国
a
的这
potential
个关系
partner
非常
in
复
dealing
杂
with，climate change in North Korea. And in a
跟
video
北朝
tonight,
鲜还有这
President
个气
Trump
候变
again
化，
blamed it for the
还有这个
coronavirus,
市
saying
场，
China will
还有
pay.
这个
Vice President Pence, how would you
疫情。
describe our fundamental relationship
说
with China? Competitors,
美国最基本的
adversaries,
跟中国
enemies?
的这个
You
关
have
系
2
是什
minutes.
么？
Thank you, Susan.
最基本的战略定位。
Well, before I leave that, let me speak to voting records if I can. You know, everybody knows that NAFTA cost literally
现在开始
thousands
说
of
这个
American
NAFTA，
factories
就
to
是
close.
1990几年
We
比尔
saw
克林顿
automotive
的时
jobs
候
go， south of the border. President Trump fought to renegotiate NAFTA. And the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement is now the law of the land.
特朗普一直都是反对这个 NAFTA 的。
Senator Kamala Harris was one of only 10 members of the Senate to vote against the USMCA.
我这个不是同声翻译啊，我没这水平
It。was a huge win for American farmers, especially dairy in the upper Midwest. But Senator, you said it didn't go far enough on climate change, that you put your radical environmental agenda ahead of American auto workers and ahead of American jobs. I think the American people deserve to know that. Is probably why Newsweek magazine said that Kamala Harris was the most liberal member of the United States Senate in 2019, more liberal
说
than
这
Bernie
Kamala
Sanders,
Harris 是美国
more
参议院
liberal
最
than any
左
of the
派的
others
人。
in the United States Senate. So now with regard to China, look, Susan, first and foremost, China is to blame for the coronavirus.
说中国应该被
And
责怪，
President
因为
Trump
这个疫
is
情。
not happy about it. He's made that very clear, made it clear
特朗
again
普很不
today.
开心。
China and the World Health Organization did not play straight with the American people. They did not let our personnel into China to get information on the coronavirus until
他
the
说中
middle
国
of
不让美
February.
国的这些工作人
Fortunately,
员
President Trump,
在中
in
国得
dealing
到这
with
些
China
疫
from
情
the
信
outset of
息
this。 administration, standing up to China that had been taking advantage of America for decades in the wake of Joe Biden's cheerleading for China, President Trump made that decision before the end of January to suspend all travel from China.
现在总是夸这个特朗普在1月底的时候就是给中国断航。
Opposed President Trump's decision to suspend all travel from China. He said it was hysterical. He said it was xenophobic. But President Trump
肯定又开始超时了，像这个彭斯一直超时。
We want to improve the relationship, but we're going to level the playing field. We're going to hold China accountable for what they did to America with the coronavirus.
让中国负责
Senator Harris,
对
let
这
me
疫
ask
情
you。the same question that I asked the Vice President. How would you describe our fundamental relationship with China? Are we competitors, adversaries, enemies?
是竞争者还是这个敌人
Susan, the Trump administration's perspective and approach to China has resulted in the loss of American lives.
说特朗普对中国的这个策略引起了很多人死亡，引起了很多这个工作流失。
There's a weird obsession that President Trump has
特朗普
had
呢
with getting rid
非
of
常奇
whatever
怪，
accomplishment
觉
was
得
achieved
就是
by President Obama and Vice President Biden.
自己得了很多的这个
They
功
created
绩，
within the White House
比奥巴
an
马
office
和拜登
that basically
得得
was
多。
responsible for monitoring pandemics. They got away, they got rid of it.
奥巴马那时候有一个这个
Was a
监
team
控
of
这个流
disease
行病的
experts
这个网站，确确实实呢，特
President
朗普把这个
Obama
给
and Vice President
弄
Biden
走了。
dispatched to China to monitor what is now predictable and what might happen. They pulled them out. We now are looking
彭斯绝对不
at
承认的这些。
210,000 Americans who have lost their lives. Let's look at the job situation. We mentioned before
现在说
the
这
trade
个工作
deal,
问题，
the trade war, they wanted to call it,
贸易战。
with China. It resulted in the loss of over 300 manufacturing jobs and a
30万这个
manufacturing
制造业
recession.
工作流失。
And the American consumer paying thousands of dollars more for goods because of
说
that
美
failed
国人需要
war that they
付
called
更
it.
多的这
And let's
个
talk about
钱，
standing. Pew, a
因为这个
reputable
税。
research firm, has done an analysis that shows that leaders of all of our formerly allied countries have now decided that they hold in greater esteem and respect Xi Jinping,
说我们
the
的这些
head
盟
of the
国，
Chinese Communist Party,
我
than
们
they
我们
do
这些
Donald
盟
Trump,
国
the
这个
president of the
对
United
习近
States,
平
the
的尊
commander
重
in
比
chief
这
of
个
the
特朗普
United
尊重
States.
还
This is
高
where，we are today
这是我们现在的
because
情
of
况
a。failure of leadership by
因
this
为这
administration.
个特朗普政府呢，没有就
Senator
是
Harris,
这个
we've seen
领导力。
changes in the role of the United States in terms of global leadership over the past 4 years. And of course, times do change. What's your definition? We've seen strains with China, of course, as the Vice President mentioned. We've seen strains with our traditional allies in NATO and elsewhere. What is your definition of the role of American leadership in 2020?
说美国的这个领导力应该如何定义？
I love talking with Joe about a lot of these issues. And, Joe, I think he said it quite well. He says, foreign policy, it might sound complicated, but really it's relationships. There's
说
just
这
think
个
about
外
it,
交
it's
政策其
relationships.
实就是这个
And
国与
so
国
we
的
know
关
this
系
in。our personal and professional relationships. You got to keep your word to your friends. You got to be loyal to your friends. People who've
你
stood
必
with
须
you,
对你
you
的
got
这
to stand
个
with them.
朋友说话算数，
You
他
got
们
to
才会
know
跟
who
你
your
在一起。
adversaries are and keep them in check. But what we have seen with Donald Trump is that he has betrayed our friends
说特朗普
and
呢背叛了我们这些盟友，
embraced dictators around the world.
而且
Let's
呢，
take, for
他非
example,
常这个
Russia.
拥抱这些这个独裁者，比
I
如
serve
说
on the
俄
Intelligence
国。
Committee of the United States Senate. America's intelligence community told us
说
Russia
美
interfered
国
in
自
the
己的
election
情
of the
报
President of the
机
United
构
States in
呢说，
2016 and is
2016
playing
年
in
时候，
2020.
这个俄罗斯
Christopher Wray, the director
是
of the
影响我们
FBI,
的选
said the
举，
same.
上一次这一次，
But
但
Donald
是
Trump,
特
the
朗普呢
commander in
从
chief
来
of the
都
United
不
States of
承认，
America,
这个确
prefers
实，
to take the word
因
of
为这
Vladimir
个
Putin over the word of the
普京
American
啊
intelligence，community.
俄国呀，
You look
这
at
是
our
特朗普
friends
这敏
at
感词儿，他
NATO.
不愿意听。
He's walked away
还有
from
这个北
agreements.
约，
You can look at the Iran nuclear deal, which now has put us in a position
伊朗的
where
这
we are
个
less
核问题
safe
协
because
议，
they are building up what might end up being a significant nuclear arsenal. We were in that deal, guys. We were in the Iran nuclear deal with friends, with allies around the country. And because of Donald Trump's unilateral
说
approach
伊
to
朗的
foreign
这个
policy
核协议呢，奥巴马的时候呢，我们的这个盟友都是跟我们在一起
he
了，但
pulled
是
us
特朗
out and
普
has
直
made
接退
America
出了
less
这
safe.
个
So Susan,
伊朗的这
it's
个
about
协议，
relationships.
让
And
我
the
们这
thing
个
that
盟
has
友呢都
always
很
been
高
part of
兴。
the strength of our nation, in addition to our great military, has
说
been
关
that
于
we
我们
keep
的这
our
个
word. But Donald Trump doesn't
我们的这
understand
个
that because
军
he
事
doesn't
军队，
understand what it means to be honest.
因为特朗普不知道
Thank
什
you,
么叫诚
thank you,
实。
Senator Harris. Vice President Pence, let me give you a chance to respond.
Well, thank you. Well, President Trump kept his word when we moved the American embassy to Jerusalem, the capital
说
of the
特朗
state of
普
Israel.
这个
When
把
Joe
这
Biden was vice
个
president, they promised to do that, and they never did.
这个
We stood
大
strong
使馆挪到
with
耶路
our
撒冷
allies,
了。
but we've been demanding. NATO is now contributing more to our common defense than ever before, thanks
说
to
这
President
个北
Trump's
约
leadership.
现在呢
We've
付
strengthened our
更多的
alliances
这个
across
费
the
用给我
Asia
们，
Pacific, and we've stood strong against those who would do us harm. You know, when President Trump came into office, ISIS had captured an area of the Middle East the size
说
of
特朗普刚
Pennsylvania,
上台的时候，这个
President Trump
ISIS 占的这
unleashed
个
the American
地
military,
方非常
and
大。
our armed forces destroyed the ISIS caliphate
说现在
and
呢，
took down their
这
leader
个我们把
al-Baghdadi
这个
without
ISIS 的
one
这个头
American
给
casualty.
杀了。
Al-Baghdadi was responsible for the death of thousands,
说他们这个
and
杀了
notably
这个恐
Americans'
怖分
hearts
子
today are
的
with
头
the。family of Kayla Mueller, her parents of which are here with us tonight in Salt Lake City. Today, 2 of the ISIS killers responsible for Kayla Mueller's murder were brought to justice in the United States. Jihadi John was killed on the battlefield along with the other beetle. The reality is that when Joe Biden was vice president, we had an opportunity to save Kayla Mueller. It breaks my heart to reflect on it, but the military came into the Oval Office, presented a plan. They said they knew where Kayla was. Baghdadi had held her for 18 months, abused her mercilessly before they killed her. But when Joe Biden was vice president, they hesitated for a month. And when armed forces finally went in, it was clear she'd been moved 2 days earlier. And her family says with a heart that broke the heart of every American that if President Donald Trump had been president, they believe Kayla would be alive today.
Thank you, Vice
Look, we
President.
destroyed the ISIS caliphate. And you talk
现在又
about
开始
re-entering
超时了，
the
这
Iran
个
nuclear
彭斯
deal. I mean, the last administration
说伊朗核
transferred
协议。
$1.8 billion to the leading state sponsor
Thank you, Vice
of
President.
terrorism. President Donald Trump got us out of the
Thank you,
deal.
Vice President Pence.
And when Qasem Soleimani was traveling
这
to
个主持人
Baghdad
确
to
实压不
harm
住这
to
个
Americans,
这个彭
President
斯，
Donald
因为
Trump
彭
took
斯
Thank you,
总
Vice
是
President.
超
and
时
America
超时半
is
分钟。
safer, our allies are safer, and the American people know President Donald Trump will never
Thank you, Vice President
take
Pence.
action.
I would like to give Senator Harris a chance to respond, but not at such great length because, of course, there are other topics we want to talk about.
But I would like equal time.
Yes.
Thank you.
Please go ahead.
First of all, to the Mueller family, I know about your daughter's case, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
说 Miller 这
What happened
个
to her is
一个
awful,
女
and it should
性
have，never happened.
应该是在这个
And I know
中
Joe feels the
东
same
中
way.
东的时候被这个
And
人
I
劫
know that
持
President
当
Obama
人
feels the
质，
same way.
然后杀了。这个是在奥巴马时期发生的。
But you mentioned Soleimani. Let's start there. So after the strike on Soleimani, there was a counter strike on our troops in Iraq.
说这个苏拉曼尼今年年初的时候，这个伊
They
朗呢
suffered serious brain injuries, and do you know what Donald Trump dismissed them as? Headaches.
哦，伊
And
朗的
this
不
is
是有
about a
这
pattern
个
of Donald
反
Trump,
击吗？
where he has
有
referred
好几个这个美国士
to
兵是
our
这
men
个
who are serving
头
in
部
our
受伤，
military
但
as
是这个
suckers
特朗
and
普说
losers.
这就是头疼。
Donald Trump, who went to Arlington Cemetery
好，现在开始说这个
and stood
大西洋报
above
报
the
的这个事情了，
graves
就是一
of
两
our
年
fallen
前，这
heroes.
个特朗普
and said,
去法国的时候说
What's
这
in it
个
for them?
美国这
Because
些
of
一战
course,
中
you
死
know,
的
he
这
only
些
thinks about
这
what's in it
个
for him.
这
Let's
些
take
美国士兵
what he
说
said
他们
about
都是
John
这个
McCain,
losers and
a great
suckers
American
失败
hero.
者。现在开始说这个麦凯恩
And Donald
越
Trump
战的时
says
候被
he
这
doesn't
个
deserve
俘
to be
虏
called a
的
hero
麦凯恩，
because he was a prisoner
然
of
后
war.
特朗普
Take, and
说
this
这
is
个
very
很不尊敬
important
麦凯恩，
when
说
you
用
want to
麦凯
talk
恩
about
当这个战
who
俘
is the
了。
current commander in chief and what they care about and what they don't care about. Public reporting that Russia had bounties on the heads
然后又开始说这个俄罗斯给这个塔利班这些士兵悬赏，只要杀一个美国士兵就给多少钱。
And
但是
Donald
这个特朗
Trump
普
had
从来不
talked
承
at
认。
least 6 times to Vladimir Putin and never brought up the subject. Joe
说
Biden
这
would never do
个
that.
特朗普见了6次
Joe
这
Biden
个普
would
京，从来不
hold
提这事儿。
Russia to account for any threat to
因
our
为确
nation's
实是
security
呢，这
or
个
to
特朗普
our
政府是
troops
亲俄的
who are
反中，而这个拜
sacrificing
登
their
呢比较
lives for
亲
the sake
华，
of our
但是
democracy and our
反
safety.
俄
Thank。you, Senator Harris. This is such an important issue, but we have other important issues as well. And I
现
want
在
to,
不
I
让
want to
这
make
个
sure we
彭
have a
斯说
chance.
了，彭斯还想说，不让说了。
She has
15 seconds because
Well, I gotta
we're
have
trying
more
to
than
keep.
that. Look,
well, you,
15
I'm sorry,
秒钟
but Vice President,
Look,
you've had
15
more
秒
time
钟，
than
只给
she's
了
had
15秒钟
so。far.
但是
slanders
这
against
个
President Donald
彭斯
Trump
肯定不止说15秒钟。
regarding men and women of our armed forces are absurd.
I'm sorry, Vice
My
President
son is a
Pence.
刚刚
captain
就
in
说
the
了，
United
因为
States
他每
Marine
次如果
Corps.
说
My
太多的
son-in-law
话，
is
超时
deployed
太
in the
严重。
United States Navy. I can assure all of you, with sons and daughters serving in our military, President Donald Trump not only respects but reveres all of those who serve in our armed forces, and any suggestion otherwise is ridiculous.
But
Let
thank
me
you,
also
Vice
say
President Pence.
that
Vice
the
President
American people
Pence.
现在
deserve
说上没完没了了，彭斯开始。
Vice President Pence, I did not, excuse me,
Susan, the
I did
American
not
people
create
deserve
the
to know
rules for tonight.
Joe Biden
Your
and Trump-
campaigns agreed to the rules for tonight's
I-
debate, the Commission on Presidential Debates. I'm here to enforce them,
现在
which
说
involves
你
moving
们
from one
同
topic
意
to
这
another,
个我
giving
们
roughly equal
遵
time
守
to
这个
both
辩
of
论
you,
关
which
系
is
了，
what
你
I'm
们不
trying
能一
very
直
hard to do.
这个
So I want to go ahead
超
and
时
move。to the next topic, which
这
is
估计
an
这主
important
持人
one,
也是受不
as
了
the
了，受不
last
了
topic
彭斯
was,
了。
and that is the Supreme Court.
现在说这个大法官的
On
事
Monday, the
情，最
Senate
高法院
Judiciary Committee is scheduled to open hearings on Amy Coney Barrett's nomination to the Supreme Court. Senator Harris, you'll be there as a member of the committee. Her confirmation would cement the court's conservative majority and make it likely open to more abortion restrictions, even to
说
overturning
这
the
个新的大
landmark
法
Roe v.
官
Wade
这个
ruling.
Amy 这个女法官
Access to
呢是
abortion
比
would
较
then be up to the
这个反
states.
对堕胎的，
Vice President Pence,
这
you're
是
the
很多
former
这个
governor
女
of
性比较
Indiana.
担心的。
If Roe v. Wade is overturned, what would you
因
want
为
Indiana
1973
to
年的时候，
do?
这个
Would you
Roe
want
v.
your home
Wade 的这个
state
是
to
基本上是一个
ban
这个
all
非常
abortions?
著名的
You
法案，
have
就
2
是给了
minutes
这个女性
uninterrupted.
堕
Well,
胎
thank
的
you for
机
the
会。
question, but I'll use a little bit of my time to respond to that very important issue before. The American people deserve to know Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian
现
general,
在
was
他不
responsible
说这
for
个，
the
他
death
说
of
还是说这
hundreds
个苏莱
of
曼尼的事
American
情。
service members. When the opportunity came, we saw him headed to Baghdad to kill more Americans. President Trump didn't hesitate, and Qasem Soleimani is gone. But you deserve to know that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris actually criticized the decision to take out Qasem Soleimani.
说拜登和
It's
卡
really
马哈里
inexplicable,
斯
but
谴责
with
我
regard
们
to
这
Joe
个
Biden,
杀了这个苏拉
it's
曼尼。
explainable. Because history records that Joe Biden actually opposed the raid against Osama bin Laden. It's absolutely essential that we have a commander-in-chief who will not hesitate to act to protect American lives and to protect American service members, and that's what you have in President Donald Trump. Now, with regard to the Supreme Court of the
现在才
United
开始说
States,
大法官的事
let
情。
me say President Trump and I could not be more enthusiastic about the opportunity to see Judge Amy Coney Barrett become Justice Amy Coney Barrett. She's a brilliant woman, and she will bring a lifetime of experience and a sizable American family to the Supreme Court of the United States. And our hope is, in the hearing next week, unlike Justice Kavanaugh received with treatment from you and others, we hope she gets a fair hearing. And we particularly hope that we don't see the kind of attacks on her Christian faith that we saw before.
说希望你们不要攻击这个 Amy 大法官的这个天主教的信仰。
When Judge Barrett was being confirmed for the Court of Appeals, expressed concern that the dogma of her faith lived loudly in her. Dick Durbin of Illinois said that it was a concern. Senator, I know one of our judicial nominees you actually attacked because they were a member of the Catholic Knights of Columbus, just because the Knights of Columbus holds pro-life views and
Thank you.
pro-marriage views.
Thank you, Vice President
So
Pence. Your
my
time
hope
is
is that
up.
when the hearing takes place,
现在他又
Thank you,
开始
Vice
超
President
时了，
that
这
Judge
个
Amy
时
Coney
时
Barrett
间
will be respected,
Thank you,
treated
Vice President
respectfully,
Pence.
voted and confirmed
Thank
to the
you.
Supreme Court of the United States.
Senator Harris, you're the senator from and former Attorney General of California. So let me ask you a parallel question to the one I posed to the Vice President. If Roe v. Wade is overturned, what would you want California to do? Would you want your home state to enact no restrictions on access to
说如果
abortion.
这个最高
And
法
you
院
have
把
2
这
minutes
个
uninterrupted.
堕胎
Thank you,
给废掉的
Susan. First of
话，
all,
你
Joe
你们
Biden
加
and
州
I
准
are
备怎么
both
弄？
people of faith, and it's insulting to suggest that we would knock anyone for their faith. And in fact, Joe,
卡
if
马哈里斯
elected, will
说
be
拜
only
登
the
和我都是
second
信教的。
practicing Catholic as president of the United States. On the issue of this nomination, Joe and I are very clear, as are the majority of the American people.
他说美国
We
大
are
部分人呢，
27 days before
只
the
有
decision
20
about who
都
would
是
be
认为
the
现
next
在不应
president of the
该
United
这么
States.
快通过大法官
And
任
you
命，
know,
因为只有
before
27
when this
天就
conversation
大
has
选
come
了
up,。it's been about election year or election time. We're literally in an election.
说现在已经开始投票了，已经有400万
People are
人
in
已
the
经投
process
票
of
了。
voting right now. And so Joe has been very clear, as the American people are. Let the American people
说
fill
美
that
国
seat in
人
the
和
White
拜登
House.
都说
And
让
then
美
we'll
国人
fill
来
that
决
seat
定
on the United States
就是
Supreme Court. And to your point,
怎么
Susan,
做，
the
让美国人
issues
的投
before
票
us
来决
couldn't be
定
more
怎么做，
serious.
需要
There's
什
the
么样
issue
的
of
法官。
choice, and I will always fight for a woman's right to make a
他
decision
说
about
呢，
her
我
own
是
body.
支
It
持
should
这
be her
个妇女
decision
有
and
堕
not
胎
that
的
of
权
Donald
利的。
Trump and the Vice President, Michael Pence. But let's also look at what else is before the court. It's the Affordable Care Act. Like
好，现在又开始说到
literally
这
in the
个
midst of a public
这
health
个奥巴马
pandemic.
care 的，因为这个大选
When
之后
over
一周，最高法院就开
210,000
始
people
投
have
票，
died
是不是能
and
够再
7 million
次
people
试图废除这
probably
个奥
have
巴马
what will be in the
这
future
个 care。
considered a pre-existing condition
所以
because
很多这
you
个民
contracted
主
the
党人也非常
virus.
担心，如果
Donald Trump
强
is in
行
court
把一
right
个
now
这
trying
个
to get rid of the
特朗普大
Affordable
法
Care
官
Act.
塞进去
And
的
I
话，有
said
可
it
能这个奥
before,
巴
and
马
it
care 就
bears
被废了。
repeating. This means that there will be no more protections if they win for people with pre-existing conditions.
现
This
在呢，就
means
是
that
让
over
这
20
个
million
选
people
民
will
恐惧，
lose your
说如果
coverage.
他们赢了的话，
It
这个
means
女
that
法
if
官
you're
一
under
任
the
命，
age of
最高法院
26,
有可能
you
就把
can't
这
stay
个
on
奥
your
巴马
parents'
care 给
coverage
废掉。
anymore.
那些
And here's
之
the
前有
thing.
疾病的人
The
可能就
contrast
没有
couldn't be
办
more
法有
clear.
这医保
They're
了，
trying
这
to
是
get
让
rid of
人
the
紧
Affordable
张。
Care Act. Joe Biden is saying, let's expand coverage. Let's give you a choice of a public option or private coverage. Let's bring down premiums.
拜登的
Let's
这
lower
个医保
Medicare
法案是
eligibility
这
to
个
60.
政府和
That's
私营
true
的相
leadership.
结合
You
的。
know, you mentioned earlier, Vice President Pence, that the president was committed to maintaining protections for people with pre-existing conditions. But you do have this court case that you are supporting, your administration is supporting, that would strike down the Affordable Care Act. The president says, President Trump says that he's going to protect people with pre-existing conditions, but he has not explained how he would do that.
因为
And
这
that was
个
one of
特
the
朗普
toughest
说，
nuts
这
to
个
crack
我们
when they were
从
passing
2016
the
年的时候
Affordable
就说
Care Act.
废
So
除奥
tell
巴马
us
医保，我们会有一
specifically,
个
how
更好
would
的
your
这个医保，
administration
但是4年
protect
了都是难
Americans with
产，就一
pre-existing
直
conditions to
没有
have
说出来
access
到
to
底什么样
affordable
的这个医
insurance
保。
if the Affordable Care Act is struck down?
Well, thank you, Susan. But let me just say, addressing your very first question, I couldn't be more proud to serve as vice president to a president who stands without apology for the sanctity of human life. I'm pro-life. I don't apologize for it.
因为这个
this is another
彭
one of
斯
those
呢，他
cases
也
where
是
there's
这个
such a
信教的，
dramatic
也是
contrast.
反对堕胎的。他说
Joe
我
Biden and
对此
Kamala
非常
Harris
骄傲。
support taxpayer funding of abortion all the way up to the moment of birth. Late-term abortion. They want to increase funding to Planned Parenthood
说
of
这
America.
个用
Now, for
纳
our
税
part,
人的
I
钱
would never
来
presume
给
how
这
Judge
些
Amy
堕胎
Coney
的女
Barrett
性
would rule on
来
the
堕
Supreme
胎，
Court
是有的是
of the United
非常
States,
这个都
but
快生出来的时
we'll
候的
continue
堕
to
胎，
stand strong
是
for
这
the
个
right to
浪
life.
费我们纳税人
When
的
you
钱。
speak about the Supreme Court, though, I think the American people
现
really
在又
deserve
开
an
始
answer,
说这
Senator
个
Harris.
大法官的问题。
Are you and Joe Biden going to pack the court if Judge Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed? I mean, there have been 29 vacancies on the Supreme Court during presidential election years, from George Washington to Barack Obama. Presidents have nominated in all 29 cases. But your party is actually openly advocating adding seats to the Supreme Court, which has
国
had
民主
9
党
seats for
现在宣
150
称，如果要
years.
是
If
强
you
行
don't
加
get
大
your
法官
way,
的话，
this
我
is
们
a
就会
classic case
上
of
台
if
之
you can't
后
win
把
by
这
the
大法
rules,
官的数
you're
量
going to
从
change
这
the
个
rules. Now, you've
9
refused to
个
answer
增
the
加到更
question.
多。
Joe Biden has refused to answer the question. So I think the American people would really like to
其
know
实这个
if Judge Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed to the
拜
Supreme
登
Court
一
of the
直都没
United
有说
States.
他会不
Are
会
you
增
and
加
Joe
这个
Biden, if somehow
大法
you
官
win
人
this
数。
election, going to pack the Supreme Court
这
to
就
get
叫
your
pack
way?
the Supreme
I'm so
Court。
glad we went through a little history lesson. Let's do that a little more. In 1864.
Well, I'd like you to answer the question.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. I'm speaking. Okay. In 1864, one of
1864
the,
年
I think,
这个
political heroes, certainly of the
林
president,
肯
I assume if you also, Mr. Vice President, is Abraham Lincoln.
林肯这个打完这
Abraham
个内
Lincoln
战
was up for
内战，
re-election.
然后这个
And it was
马
27
上就
days
要
before the
这
election.
个面临
And a seat became
连任
open
的
on
时
the
候
United States
，27
Supreme Court.
天
Abraham Lincoln's party
有一
was
个
in
这
charge,
个
not only of the White House, but the Senate.
有一个这个最高法
But
院的
honest
这个位置
Abe
出来了。那个时候呢，这个
it's not
林
the
肯
right thing
党
to do.
是
The
占
American
有这个国
people
会，占有
deserve
总
to make the
统，但是他们
decision
仍然
about who will be
没
the
有
next
这
president of
个
the
直
United
接即
States.
时提名，而
And
是
then
等到
that
这个
person
选举之
can
后
select
才开
who
始
will
弄的。
serve
但
for
是
a
这次呢，
lifetime
特朗普是
on
这
the
个有
highest
权
court
利不用
of
夫妻
our
作
land.
废，就是非常
And
着
so
急的
Joe and
想
I are very
这
clear.
个选举之
The
前就把
American
这个人
people are
就是塞进去
voting。right now, and it should be their decision.
说应该是这个
about
美国
who
老百
will
姓现在正在
serve on
竞
this
选的
most
这些，
important
现在
body
正在投票的
for
这
a
些美国老百
lifetime.
姓来决定让谁来
Thank
当
you,
这个大
And
统
Senator
领。
Harris.
people, Susan,
但是
are
他没有
voting
这个
right now. They'd like
回
to
答
know if
这
you and
个
Joe Biden are going to
没有回答
pack the
这个
Supreme Court
这个问题，
if you don't get your
说
way
会
in
不
this
会把这
nomination.
大法官
Let's
人数
talk
增
about
多？
that.
You once
Come on,
again gave a non-answer. Joe Biden gave a
I'm
non-answer.
trying to answer you
The
now.
American people deserve a straight answer. And if you haven't figured it out yet, the straight answer is they are going to pack the Supreme Court
说他
if
们
they
会把
somehow
这个
win
人
this
数增
election.
多。
Men and
Mr.
women,
Vice President,
I got
I
to tell you,
think-
people across this country, if you cherish our Supreme Court, if you cherish the separation of powers, you need to reject the Biden-Harris ticket. Come November the 3rd, re-elect President Donald Trump, and we'll stand by that separation of powers in a 9-seat Supreme Court.
Yeah, let's talk about packing the court then.
好，现在他开
Let's
始
talk
正式
about
回
the
答
pack.
了，
Yeah, I'm about to.
是不是把这个人数增加？
So the Trump-Pence administration has been, because I sit on the Senate Judiciary Committee, Susan, as you mentioned, and I've witnessed the appointments for lifetime appointments to the federal courts, district courts, courts of appeal. People who are purely ideological, people who have been reviewed by legal professional organizations and found to have been not competent, are substandard. And do you know that of the 50 people who President Trump appointed to the Court of Appeals for lifetime appointments,
说特朗普任
not
命
one
了
is
50
black?
个人，
This is
50个
what
法
they've
官
been
没有
doing.
一
You want to
个
talk
是
about
黑人。
packing a court? Let's have that discussion.
All right, thank you, Senator. Let's go on and talk about the issue of
还是没有
racial
回答。
justice.
I just want the record to reflect she never answered the question. So I think the American people,
Thank
maybe
you.
the next debate, Joe Biden will answer the question,
Thank you,
but I think
thank
the
you.
American people know the answer.
Thank you, Vice President. In March, Breonna Taylor, a 26-year-old emergency room technician in
现在
Louisville,
开
was
始
shot
说
and
这
killed
个
after
Breonna
police
Taylor
officers
就是
executing
一
a
个
search warrant in a narcotics
12的一个
investigation
这
and
个
broke
黑
into
人
her
女性
apartment.
啊，当时
The
也是
police
被
said
这个
they identified
警
themselves.
察直接是
Taylor's
踹门
boyfriend said he didn't hear
打
them do
开
that.
门就直
He
接就
used a
把
gun
她跟她
registered
老
to him
公
to
就是
fire a
朝中射
shot,
击，
which wounded an
结果
officer.
那个黑
The
人女性
officers then fired
被
more than 20 rounds
打
into
死
the
了，
apartment. They say they were
也是
acting
引起了
in
这个
self-defense. None
抗
of them
议。
have been indicted in connection with her death. Senator Harris, in the case of Breonna Taylor, was justice done? You have 2 minutes.
I don't believe so. And I've talked with Breonna's mother, Tamika Palmer, and her family. And her family deserves justice. She was a beautiful young woman. She
哦，
had
这个王
as her
开
life
心的
goal
问
to
题，
become a nurse, and she
我
wanted
觉
to
得这个
become
问
an
题呢，
EMT to first learn
肯
what's
定
going
是有这
on
个重合
out
的，
on
肯
the
定有可
street,
能这
so
个
she could then
一个党派候选人
become a
同
nurse
意
and
一
save
部
lives.
分这个对
And
方
her
党
life
派
was
的
taken
政策，但是一般呢就不会
unjustifiably and
不
tragically
会
and
在辩论
violently.
中说了，
And
因
it
为
just
说的
it,
全
it
都是
brings
这
me
个针锋相
to,
对的。
you know,
比如
the
说这
8
个
minutes
彭
and
斯，他
46
是这
seconds that
个
America
非常反
witnessed,
对堕胎的。
during which an American man was tortured and killed under the knee of an armed, uniformed police officer. And people around our country of every race,
现在就开始说
of
这个今年的
every
这
age,
个
of every
示威
gender,
的情况，因为
perfect
今年
strangers to each other,
确实是是非非
marched
常严重，而
shoulder
这
to
个示威
shoulder,
呢，
arm in arm,
特朗普也是把这些示威
fighting
说成是这个骚乱，
for
然
us
后
to
说是抢
finally
劫，
achieve that
然
ideal
后
of
民主
equal
党就是说
justice
这个
under
示威
law.
是因为这个种族
And I
不
was
公，
a
所
part
以
of
同
those
样一件事情呢，
peaceful
完全是
protests.
被这两个党不同的解
And
读，
I
而且是用
believe
一种
strongly
恐惧啊
that
来这个
first of
吓
all,
唬
we are
选
never
民，说
going
如果
to
选对方
condone
的话，
violence,
这
but we
个咱们国
always
家就完
must
了。
fight for the values that we hold dear, including the fight to achieve our ideals. And that's why Joe Biden and I have said on this subject, look, and I'm a former career prosecutor. I know what I'm talking about. Bad cops are bad for good cops. We need reform of our policing in America and our criminal justice system, which is why Joe and I will immediately ban chokeholds and carotid holds. George Floyd would be alive today if we did that. We will require a national registry for police officers who break the law. We will, on the issue of criminal justice reform, get rid of private prisons and cash bail, and we will decriminalize marijuana, and we will expunge the records of those who have been convicted of marijuana. This is a time for leadership on a tragic issue.
Senator Harris, your
time is up.我记得2016年的时候，这个副总统辩论确实拜登
Vice President Pence, let me pose the same question to
这个
you.
彭斯
In
说
the
的
case of Breonna Taylor,
更好一些。
was justice done? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Well, our heart breaks for the loss of any innocent American life. And the family of Breonna Taylor has our sympathies. But I trust our justice system, a grand jury that refused the evidence. And it really is remarkable that as a former prosecutor, you would
美国
assume
的华
that a
人有
panel
很多
grand
是
jury
非
looking
常
at all
恨
the
这个民
evidence
主
got
党
it
的，尽
wrong.
管他们
But
当时
you're
这个移
entitled
民
to
的
your
时候
opinion,
受到了这
Senator.
个民主党这个亲移民这个政策的这个
And with regard to
优惠
George， Floyd, there's no
但
excuse
是
for what
呢，
happened
这
to
个
George
移民之
Floyd.
后都是比较恨民主党
Justice
的。
will be served. But there's also no excuse for the rioting and looting that followed.
你看现在就
I
是
mean,
说
it
这
really is
个
astonishing. Flora Westbrook is with us here tonight in Salt Lake City.
这个
Just a few weeks ago, I stood at what used to be her salon was burned to the ground.
说示威中很多都是这个 looting， 都是抢劫呀、
And Flora is
杀人放
still
火
trying
的，
to
就
put her
是
life back together.
完全
And I must tell you,
使劲儿给这个美国选民
this
塑造一
presumption
种这个形
that
象，
you
就
hear
是说
consistently
这次
from
这
Joe Biden
个
and Kamala Harris
示威到底是
that,
非法的还是合法
that
的？
America is systemically racist. And that, as Joe Biden said, that he believes that law enforcement has an implicit bias against minorities is a great insult. To the
哎呦，
men and
彭
women
斯
who
头上
serve
落了一
law
个苍蝇，
enforcement,
大家
I
看见
want
没有？
everyone to know
在
that
上面
puts
落了
on
很
the
长
uniform
时间
of
了，
law
落了
enforcement
这
every
10几
day.
秒钟了，这个
President
苍
Trump
蝇。
and
然后
I
彭斯现
stand
在也是
with you.
纹丝不动啊，
And
大
it's
家看见没有？这个
remarkable
苍蝇，
that when Senator
哎呦，
Tim Scott
还一直在头
tried to
上爬。
pass a police reform bill, brought together a group of Republicans and Democrats, Senator Harris, you got up and walked out of the room. And then you
哎
filibustered
呦，这
Senator
个虫子也不走
Tim
了，
Scott's
彭斯也挺
bill
厉
on
害
the
的，纹
Senate
丝不
floor
动。
that would have provided new
白
accountability,
头
new
发上看得非常
resources.
明显。
But we don't have to choose between supporting law enforcement, improving public safety, and supporting our African American
Thank you,
neighbors
Vice
and
President.
all of our minorities. Under President Trump's leadership,
Thank you,
we'll
Vice President.
always stand with law enforcement, and we'll do what we've done
Vice
from day
President
one,
Pence,
thank you.
to improve the lives of African Americans.
Thank you, Vice
Record
President Pence.
unemployment,
现在这个
record
也是不
investments
让
in
这个彭斯
education,
说
and
了。
fight for school choice for all of our members.
Thank you, Vice
I'd like
President.
to respond.
Senator Harris.
I will not sit here and be lectured by the vice president on what it means to enforce the laws of our country. I am the only one on this stage who has personally prosecuted everything from child sexual assault to homicide.
因为这个
I'm the only one on this stage who has
卡马哈里斯以
prosecuted the
前毕
big
竟
banks
是这
for
个
taking advantage
加
of
州的
America's
这个主
homeowners.
控
I'm
官
the
嘛，
only
所
one on
以
this stage
他当时
who
当这个
prosecuted
主
for
控官的
profit
时候也
colleges
是
for taking
得罪不少
advantage
人。
of our veterans. And the reality of this is that we are talking about an
哎
election
呦，
in
这
27 days.
这个
where
苍蝇在
last
上面
week,
待了
the president of
多
the
长时
United
间
States
了？
took a debate stage in front of 70 million Americans and refused to condemn white supremacists.
Not true.
And
现在说这个白人至上
like
主
he
义，
didn't
因
have
为
a
这个特朗普
chance.
一直都是不
He
谴责
didn't
白
do
人
it,
至
and
上
then
主
he
义。
doubled down. And then he said, when pressed, stand back.
彭斯应该就是这个白头发了，因为他20年前就是头
This
发
is a
就白了一
part
大
of
半
a
了。
pattern of Donald Trump's. He
好了，现在
called
这个苍蝇终于
Mexicans
飞走了。真的是
rapists and criminals. He instituted as his first act a Muslim ban. He on the issue of Charlottesville.
现在开始说
Where
这
people
个
were
对伊斯兰的这个
peacefully
游禁令了，川
protesting
普刚上台时候。
The need for racial justice, where a young woman was killed,
现
and
在
on
这
the
个
other
卡
side
马哈
there were
里斯也是使劲
neo-Nazis
儿
carrying
打这个
tiki
种族
torches,
牌啊，打这
shouting
个感情牌
racial。 epithets, anti-Semitic slurs, and Donald Trump, when asked about it, said, "They were fine people. on both sides.
因为现在
This
这
is
个
who we
美
have
国
as
各
the
大议
president of
题
the
唯
United
一
States.
这
In
个川
America,
普
you
领先的
deserve
就是这个
better.
经济议题
Joe
啊。
Biden will be a president
其他的
who
这些
brings
所有
our
议题，
country
比如说这个
together
社会团结
and,
呀，
and
还有这
recognizes the
个其
beauty
他
in
的
our
各个问题，
diversity
都是拜
and
登
the
表
fact that
现
we。all have
Thank
so
you.
much more in common than what separates us.
Vice President Pence, let me give you a minute to respond.
Thank you, Susan. I appreciate that very much. You know, I think this is one of the things that makes people dislike the media so much in this country, Susan.
现在开
So
始
you
说，
selectively edit, just like Senator Harris
现在
did,
开始说这个假新闻了啊，
comments that President Trump and I and others on our
是
side
这
of
个
the
美国
aisle
媒
make.
体了。
I mean, Senator Harris conveniently omitted after the president made comments about people on either side of the debate over monuments, he condemned the KKK, neo-Nazis, and white supremacists, and has done so repeatedly. You're concerned that he doesn't condemn neo-Nazis. President Trump has Jewish grandchildren. His daughter and son-in-law are Jewish.
是的 ，Eric 彭，我也看到这个新闻了。现在这个川普政府已经是让这个 H1B 的日子越来越难过了。奥巴马那时候还是比较轻松的，这亲身经
I
历。
really need to make this point. When you were DA in San Francisco, when you left office, African Americans were 19 times more likely to be prosecuted for minor drug offenses than whites and Hispanics. When you
说
were
这 Kamala
Attorney
Harris
General
以
of
前
California,
在
you
这个三
increased
藩这个任职，还有在加州任职的时候开始挖这个黑历史，说你并没有让这个美国黑人生活变好。
reform in California. You didn't lift a finger to pass the First Step Act on Capitol Hill. I mean, the reality is your record speaks for
现
itself.
在开始又开始狂超时了。拜登这个彭斯这一次也是有一点这个跟特朗普一样，就是拳头打到棉花上，因为这个 Kamala Harris 和拜登都不着急，有点使不上劲儿。
He attacked my record. I would like an opportunity to respond.
Let me give you 30 seconds because
30秒钟。
we're running out of
I
time.
appreciate that. First of all, having served as the Attorney General of the state of California, the work that I did is a model of what our nation needs to do,
他说我当
and we
年
will
在
be
加
able
州
to do
做的，
under
我
a
应
Joe
该
Biden
是这
presidency.
个我们将来想做
Our
的。
agenda
是一个
includes what
榜
this
样。
administration has failed to do. It will be about not only instituting a ban on chokeholds and carotid holes.
Thank you.
Not only.
Thank you, Senator.
I would
Harris.
like to go through.
These are points that you made earlier in the hour, and I want to talk about the election itself before we have to.
But I want to talk about the connection between what Joe and I will do and my record, which includes I was the first statewide officer to institute a requirement that my agents would wear body cameras and keep them on full time. We were the first to initiate a requirement that there would be a training for law enforcement on implicit bias because yes, Joe Biden and I recognize that implicit bias does exist, Mr. Vice President, contrary to what you may believe. We did the work of instituting reforms that were about investing in reentry. This is the work that we have done and the work we will do going forward. And again, I will not be lectured by the Vice President on our record of what we have done in terms of law enforcement and keeping our communities safe and a commitment to reforming the criminal justice system of America.
Thank you, Senator Harris. And I'd like to pose I'd like you to respond first to the question on our final topic, the election itself.
最后是
President
关于
Trump has
选举
several
的问
times
题，
refused to commit himself
肯定说
to
这
a
个特朗
peaceful
普说这
transfer
个选
of
举是
power
假
after the
的
election. If your
，fraud。
ticket wins and President Trump refuses to accept a peaceful transfer of power,
他不
what
是 CNN
steps
的主
would
持
you
人
and
啊，这个
Vice
不是
President
CNN 的主
Biden
持
then
人。
take? What would happen next? You have 2 minutes.
So I'll tell you, Joe and I are, I think, particularly proud of the coalition that we've built around our campaign. We probably have one of the broadest coalitions of folks that you've ever seen in a presidential race. Of course, we have the support of Democrats, but also independents and Republicans. In fact, 7 members of President George W. Bush's cabinet are supporting our
说
ticket.
小布什这个内阁中有7个人都支持拜登，不支持特朗普。
Cindy McCain, John Kasich, over 500 generals, retired generals and
说有
former
超过
national
500个
security
这个退
experts
休
and
的这
advisors
将
are
军都支
supporting
持
our
拜登，不
campaign.
支持特朗普。
And I believe they are doing that because they know that Joe Biden has a deep, deep-seated commitment to fight for our democracy
这个主持人
and
是
to
叫
fight
什
for
么
the
USA
integrity
Today，
of our
就是不是
democracy
CNN
and to
和
bring
福克斯
integrity
的。
back to the White House. And so we believe in the American people. We believe in our
我现在
democracy.
给大家看的是
And here's what I'd
PBS 的
like
这
to
个
say to
直播。
everybody. Vote. Please vote. Vote early. Come up with a plan to vote. Go to iwillvote.com. You
说
can
大
also
家
go
一定
to
要这个
joebiden.com.
去
We
投
have
票，
it within our
一定
power
尽
in
早
these
投
next
票。
27 days
我们只有
to
27天
make
就
the
投票了。
decision about what will be the course of our country for the next 4 years. And it is within our power, and if we use our vote and we use our
说
voice,
是这是我们
we
有
will win.
能力决定
And we
接下
will
来4
not
年我
let
们国家
anyone
应该走什
subvert
么样
our
的方向的。
democracy with what Donald Trump has been doing, as he did on the debate stage last week, when again in front of 70 million people, he openly attempted to suppress the vote.
说他
Joe
是
Biden,
这
on the other hand, on that same
个
debate stage, because
suppressible， 他
clearly
就
Donald
是
Trump doesn't think he can run on a record because it's a failed
让
record.
很多人
Joe Biden
没
on
法
that
来
stage
这
said,
个
"Hey,
投票，
just
因为
please
他不是
vote."
特朗普
So
说
I'll
说
repeat what
我让
Joe
我的
said.
支持者
Please
去各
vote.
个投票
Thank
点
you,
去盯着，
Senator. Vice
说看有
President
没有
Pence,
人作假，
President
作
Trump
假
has
的给
several
他揪
times
出来。
refused to commit himself to a peaceful transfer of power after the election.
说这个特朗普
If
从来
Vice
没有承
President
诺
Biden is
过
declared the
会有
winner
一
and
个这
President
个
Trump
和
refuses
平
to
这个权
accept
力
a
交接
peaceful
这个
transfer
书
of
的话，
power, what would be your role and responsibility as Vice President? What would you personally do? You have 2 minutes.
Well, Susan, first and foremost, I think we're going to win this election.
他说我觉得我们
Because
会
while
赢的
Joe。Biden and Kamala Harris rattle off a long litany of the establishment in Washington, D.C., an establishment
现
that
在
Joe
说
Biden's
这个
been a
建
part of
制
for
派的
47 years,
痛批建制派，其实
President Donald Trump
彭斯自己也是这个建制派
has。launched a movement of everyday Americans from every walk of life. And I have every confidence that those same Americans that delivered that historic victory in 2016, they see this president's record where we rebuild our military, we revived our economy through tax cuts and rolling back
他说我觉
regulation,
得
fighting for
2016
fair
年这
trade,
个见证奇
unleashing
迹的这
American
些选
energy.
民，就是支持
We
特朗
appointed
普的这一位
conservatives
还
to our
会
federal courts at
这
every
次还
level.
会来支持这个特朗普，因为
And
他
we
们看到
stood
特
with
朗
the
普
men and
也实
women
现
of
了
law
很多的这个
enforcement
承
every
诺。
single day. And I think that movement of Americans has only grown stronger in the last 4 years. But when you talk about accepting the outcome of the election,
接受美国总统
I
选
must
举，
tell you, Senator, your party has spent the last 3.5 years trying to overturn the results of the last election. It's amazing. When Joe
说
Biden
这
was vice
个民
president
主
of the
党
United
过去
States,
3年半一直都
the
想把
FBI
这
actually
个
spied
上
on
一次选举的
President
结
Trump and
果
my
给推翻
campaign.
啊，这其实
I mean,
并
there
不
were
是这样的，
documents
因为民
released this
主
week
党
that
已
the
经接受。
CIA actually made a referral to the FBI documenting that those allegations were coming from the Hillary Clinton campaign. And of course, we've all seen the avalanche, what you put the country through for the better part of 3 years until it was found that there was no obstruction, no collusion,
现在
case
又开始
closed.
说这个
And
什么
then Senator
这个通
Harris,
俄的
you
问
and
题
your
了。
colleagues in the Congress tried to impeach the president of the United States over
开
a
始说这
phone
个总
call.
统弹劾，
And now Hillary Clinton has actually said to Joe Biden
又
that
说这
under,
个
in
家
her
里
words,
这
under
个
no
电子邮件
circumstances
的
should he
问题了。
concede the election. So let me just say, I think we're going to win this election. President Trump and I are fighting every day in courthouses to prevent Joe Biden and Harris from changing the rules and creating this universal mail-in voting that'll create a massive opportunity for voter fraud. And we have a free and fair election.
看彭斯
We
也
know we're
说
going to have
会有很
confidence in
多
it.
这个选
And I
民
believe in
作
all my
假、
heart that
投票
President
作假，
Donald
因为
Trump's
这个
going to
邮
be
寄的问
reelected
题。
for 4 more years.
You know, I've written all the questions that I've asked tonight, but for the final question of the debate, I'd like to read a question that someone else wrote. The Utah Debate Commission asked students in the state to write essays about what they would like to ask you. And I want to close tonight's debate with the question posed by Brecklin Brown. She's an 8th grader at Springville Junior High in Springville, Utah. And here's what she wrote.
说是一个8年级的一个学生。
When I watch the news, all I see is arguing between Democrats and Republicans. When I watch the news, all I see is citizen fighting against citizen. When I watch the news, all I see are 2 candidates from opposing parties trying to tear each other down. If our leaders can't get along, how are the citizens supposed to get along? And then she added, your examples could make all the difference to bring us together.
好的，说，他说我看新闻的时候看到的都是两党的人这个
and respond
在争论，是这个使劲是挖对方墙角，说如果我们的这个领导人没法get along，没法这个好好合作的话，我们的这个 美国人民怎么能够好好
following
合
the news
作？
when I was very young, and in America, we believe in a free and open exchange of debate, and we celebrate that. And it's how we've created literally the freest and most prosperous nation in the history of the world. And I would tell you that don't assume that what you're seeing on your local news networks is synonymous with the American people. You know, I look at the relationship between Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the late justice who we just lost from the Supreme Court, and the late Justice Antonin Scalia. They were on polar opposites on the Supreme Court of the United States. One very liberal, one very conservative. But what's been learned since her passing was the two of them and their families were the very closest of friends. I mean, here in America, we can disagree. We can debate vigorously, as Senator Harris and I have on this stage tonight. But when the debate is over, we come together as Americans. And that's what people do in big cities and small towns all across this country. So I just want to encourage you, Brecklin. I want to tell you that we're going to work every day to have government as good as our people. And the American people each and every day love a good debate. We love a good argument. But we always come together and are always there for one another.
Thank you.
In times of need, and we've especially learned that through the
Vice President.
difficulties of this year.
Senator Harris, what would you say to Brecklin?
First of all, I love hearing from our young leaders. And when I hear her words, when I hear your words, Brecklin, I know our future is bright because it is that perspective on who we are and who we should be.
他说：“我听到你这个小孩说的这个话的时候呢，我能够坚信我们国家会越来越好，因为你们会是我们国家将来的这个
One of the reasons
主
that
人。”
Joe decided to run for president is after Charlottesville, which we talked about earlier. It so troubled him and upset him like it did all of us that there was that kind of
说拜
hate
登决定参
and
选的一个
division.
原因是这个沙勒斯
What
维尔
propelled
这
Joe to
个
run for president
出
was to see that over the
出
course
现
of
这
the
个事
last
情之后，
4
因为
years,
这个
what
白纸上
Brecklin
就一
described
直
has been
开车
happening.
把很多示威
Joe
游行
has a
给撞了之后
long-standing
嘛，特朗普
reputation of
就是
working
拒
across
绝
the aisle
这个
and working in
谴
a
责这
bipartisan
个
way.
开车撞人
And
的
that's
这
what
个
he's going to do as president.
说这两边的
Joe
人都好
Biden
人。
has a history of lifting people up and fighting for their
现在
dignity.
开始这个
I mean, you have to know
狂
Joe's
夸这个
story
拜
to
登
know
说
that
拜
Joe
登
has
呢
known
这个
pain,
过去
he's
这么
known
多年
suffering,
都是愿意帮
and
助
he has
人
known
们，
love.
有
And
同
so,
情心。
Brecklin, when you think about the future, I do believe the future is bright.
就
And it
是
will
给
be
大家
because
一
of
个
your
比较这个
leadership,
乐观的这
and it will
个景象
be
吧。
because we fight for each person's voice
感觉
through
今
their
天
vote,
彭斯有
and we
点
get
儿这
engaged in
个
this election because
有劲儿使
you
不上，
have
不
the
是
ability
很
through your
不
work
是很
and through
这个说的尽
eventually
兴
your
感觉。
vote
Thank you,
to
Senator Harris.
determine the future of our country and what its leadership looks like.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Thank you, Vice President Pence. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We want to thank also the University of Utah for its hospitality, and most of all, our thanks to all the Americans who watched this debate tonight. Again, our best wishes for a quick recovery to President Trump, the First
现在
Lady,
希
and
望呢，这
everyone
个
who is
特朗普
battling
尽早
COVID-19.
能够
The
恢
second
复。
presidential debate is next week on October 15th, a town hall style debate in Miami.
下周
We
在
hope
迈
you'll
阿
join
密
us then.
会是第二次这个总统这个竞选辩论。好的，现在完了，大家可以看这个两边儿都是这个隔的这个有机玻璃，会保持一定距离啊，这个是一直从来都没有发生过，然后直接就回去了。所有的人都得戴这个口罩，除了这个家人。哦，你看她的这个老公也戴口罩，这个Second Lady 并没有戴口罩，但是所有的这个参加这个辩论的这些观众呢，都是要戴口罩的。
that are scheduled. Only a handful of people in the audience, as you can see,
大家看其他这
on
些人也是
moderator
戴这个口
Susan
罩的。
Page. This was a debate with,
还是比
I
较
would
表面
say,
上是比
several
较
instances where the
比较这
candidates
个平
went
和的
beyond the
啊。
time they were supposed to go. But it was a much more civil debate than what we saw
much more
last
civil
week
debate，
when
就
the
是
president
更
and
加
Joe
这个文
Biden
明的这
faced
个
off. They covered the pandemic,
文明的
COVID,
这
they
个
covered the
辩论。
economy, climate change, China, the Supreme Court, and there at the
这个
end
PBS 主
accepting
持
the
人
results
叫
of
这
the
个
election and a question
Judy
from an eighth
Woodwell， 好
grade
像是，
student
我还是
asking
很喜
why
欢他的，因为
Democrats and
他讲的非
Republicans
常清
and
楚，
people
比
in
较这
public
个
life
平
can't
静
get
啊。
along
比较
and
喜欢
why is there so much
PBS， 这个
arguing.
CNN 和
But
福
for
克
right
斯
now,
你
let's
没
go to
法
our
看。
correspondents following these campaigns. Yamiche Alcindor, Elisa
好了，
Desjardins are both back
今天
with
就给
me.
大家说这么
So
多，
Yamiche,
非常
you've been following the Trump.
非常感谢各位的这个收看啊！这个最开始的时候，我这个手机也是有点问题，所以它一直是这个没法切换成横的模式，所以也是浪费了大家将近10分钟的这个时间。然后我会给大家再上传一个视频，这个视频呢其实是这个我对今天发生一些事情的一个总结，特别呢，今天是一件事情，这个4周年，特朗普身上发生的一个事儿，4周年，也是上次总统辩论总统竞选之前突发的一个这个事件，其实对特朗普很不利的，但是特朗普这个转危为安了，愣是把这坏事儿呢说成一好事儿了。我本来想在这个辩论之前给大家传上来，但是因为这个网速比较慢，没法传。但是现在呢，我马上给大家发一下。希望这个你能够看一下，非常感谢大家的关注吧。反正这一次4年一次的这个副总统辩论呢就已经完了。我们看到拜登当时作为这个副总统这个竞选人呢，参加了08年对这个 Sarah Palin 的辩论，还有12年对这个 Paul Ryan 的这个辩论。拜登那2次亮相呢，基本上都是这个可以说是完胜啊，非常这个厉害。然后这一次呢，被特朗普说的是这个老年痴呆，没法辩论了。结果第一次总统辩论，拜登表现的也还是可以的，而且更多人认为这个拜登其实表现比特朗普要好一些，因为特朗普不是频繁这个打断主持人和拜登打断了150多次嘛，让这个美国老百姓听的都直摇头啊，就是完全觉得这实在是太痛苦了。这个但是刚刚辩论完2天，不是特朗普就这个新冠确诊了吗？昨天的时候呢，这个拜登第一次说如果这个特朗普完全没有恢复的话，还是有传染性，那不应该下周3的时候还进行这第2场总统辩论了。但是今天特朗普就是直接就是回到这椭圆形办公室结束这个隔离了。所以他的这个医生也说现在这总统身体倍儿好。这个有可能吃了这个最好的这个药，几百万美元这个实验药品之后，可能都有抗体了。所以，估计呢，这个下周3的这个第2次总统辩论还会按时召开，到时候呢，我再给大家直播。不过这个特朗普到底到时候有没有传染性，会不会真的再对这个拜登就是有一定的这个威胁？让这个拜登又吓得这一身冷汗，我估计呢，反正到时候肯定有好戏看。好，今天就给大家说这么多，非常感谢您收看啊！这个如果喜欢的话，欢迎您支持订阅我频道，并且为这个视频点赞。我们下个视频再见。